I still think they're contenders, but I realize the panic that I've been sensing from Arizona this week too, just kind of following along. And it's not the prettiest 2-0 start, that's for sure. But hey, in this league, you take the wins. You much rather be making corrections off of wins than be in the situation the Bears are in right now, where they got a lot to correct and they're 0-2.
We've got All City NFL analyst Adam Hogue joining us on the program. Adam, how are you?
What's up, Espo? I'm good.
How's life out there? I mean, how is covering the NFL from the Windy City?
Yeah, I mean it's normal. There's panic. It's the type of stress and anxiety that you expect for most teams in November and December. It hits here early. It's still 80. I think it's like 83 degrees out right now, and it's way too hot to have all of Chicago just in full panic mode.
Oh, come on, you're bragging. It's going to be like 100 here today, and inevitably, panic is all we know in
Yeah.
Arizona. You've watched the Cardinals. They're sitting at 2-0 after whatever that game was against Carolina. Are they contenders in the NFC or NFC West, or are they just pretenders in your mind?
I still think they're contenders, but I realize the panic that I've been sensing from Arizona this week too, just kind of following along. And it's not the prettiest 2-0 start, that's for sure. But hey, in this league, you take the wins. You much rather be making corrections off of wins than be in the situation the Bears are in right now, where they got a lot to correct and they're 0-2 against two divisional opponents. So, a little bit of a weird start for the Cardinals. I know we talked about it last week, and I feel like before you get to the fourth quarter, obviously, of that football game, that was even if it wasn't pretty, you were well on your way to doing what you were supposed to be doing against the Carolina Panthers, right? And we talked last week about, can they get some style points? Maybe there weren't a ton of style points, but with the defense playing at a high level and starting the game off the way the Cardinals did, to be able to get a strip sack from your high price free agent, turn that into a touchdown right away, get enough offense to build a comfortable lead by middle of the third quarter, whatever it was. I think you're feeling pretty good about what this team can still do off of that. Now they got to learn how to finish. That was an ugly fourth quarter, pretty much all around. And unfortunately, I feel like the 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 biggest problem that is the most talked about problem, and that is, can Kyler Murray play a full four-quarter game? He can run around. He can make all these special plays and throws. I thought the touchdown before halftime was incredible in a situation where if you're that defense, you can't give up a touchdown. And Kyler just came up big and made a big-time throw, big-time catch, and you get a huge play. But then you weigh that against the fourth quarter interception when you just, especially in that situation, it's 24-9. Just get the ball out of bounds. Like, what in the world are you trying to do there? But that's the good and bad of Kyler Murray, and he's always kind of been that way. I don't know if that's fixable. I think it's just something you sort of have to live with at this point if you're the Cardinals. But I do feel like there's a million other things, like the onside kick, that you can easily correct. Some of the penalties, and you put that team away way earlier than and even despite the interception, a million opportunities to put that game away.
Yeah, and a lot of people have felt like the offensive line hasn't done their job. I saw a stat today that they're actually second best in pass protection through two games. So I think Kyler's had the time. I think he kind of fell into that where he felt like he had to play Superman after that run and made a bad decision. I think that's when he starts to get in that mindset, is where he falls into those pitfalls. But big talk this week has been a lot about targets and the amount of targets that have gone to Marvin Harrison Jr. He only has 11. He ranks 58th in the NFL. He kind of laughed it off as saying that's a ridiculous conversation yesterday, talking with the media. But in your mind, when you're looking at a Cardinals offense that has struggled at times, in particular in passing, how important is it to try to target him, give him the opportunity, along with Trey McBride as well?
Well, look, yes, if you're Drew Petzing, you got to find ways to get your first round pick, your highly prized guy, the football. And to this point, statistically, Marvin Harrison Jr. just hasn't lived up to lived up to the hype. But you know what? He's really only 2 weeks behind Roma Dunze, same draft class here in Chicago, who's here the last couple weeks, he's turned into probably what Cardinals fans are hoping for Marv, right? So it's still a situation where you got to have patience, and you also got to look at the other weapons around. Like, I always think about this from a defensive coordinator standpoint. If you're going into this game against the Cardinals, and this week it's the 49ers, who are you stopping first? And when you look at these weapons, to me, what the Cardinals have, I'm still looking to shut down number 18. Whereas in Roma Dunze's case, he's got DJ Moore out here. He's got Olamide Zaccheaus out here. Luther Burden's out there. A couple tight ends that you always have to worry about. And in Marvin Harrison's case, it's really Trey McBride, right? It's stop Trey McBride, stop Marvin Harrison Jr. And so if they're going to rotate coverage over there, if they're going to make life harder on him, then sometimes the correct thing to do, if you're the offensive coordinator or you're the quarterback, is to throw it to other people who are open. So, if now I'm sure there's opportunities where he's open and Kyler's not seeing them or not looking that way. And I did see a couple of those when I went back and rewatched this one. Then it becomes a bigger problem. I don't know if I'm quite there, but I certainly understand the concern and the conversation in Arizona right now about that.
I think the concern also is that the running game has not looked as good as it did last year, and that this is supposed to be a run-heavy offense. That's what Drew Petzing likes, and if that's not clicking, how do you get the passing game going? But have you noticed anything in terms of the run game when you're watching these first two games that's kind of stuck out to you as to why they might not be as effective as last year?
Well, the specifics, I'd probably have to watch it a little bit closer. But it seems like it's a combination of, and this is where things get frustrating, because if it's not just one thing, it's harder to fix. But, you know, is it partly scheme? Is it partially, here's just one mixed block? You hear offensive coordinators talk about that all the time, right? Like, you're just one block away from springing a big one. And then sometimes it's just the running backs not, having the right amount of patience or not having the best vision. So it really can be all of those things, within the course of a game. But, the Cardinals aren't the only team right now that are trying to get the running game going. And sometimes that just takes time. But I do know I got Trey Benson as a late round pick on my fantasy team, so it'd be great if he got going. I would personally appreciate it.
Yeah, I handcuffed James Conner and Trey Benson in my league, so it'd be nice for me as well. Uh, when you look at the defense, secondary obviously now depleted with some of the injuries that occurred last weekend. Do you think that'll hurt the aggressiveness that we saw early in Sunday's game from that defensive front?
Uh, Man, you never. I always hate getting away from what's working or what the identity of the scheme is, whether that's offense or defense. So ideally, when you're putting these rosters together, when you're going through things in training camp, you talk about having a pair and a spare at most of these positions, and with the idea that whoever's coming in for a starter, if they're banged up, you don't have to drastically change your scheme. Now, we all know that can be wishful thinking sometimes, and you typically have to make some type of adjustments. But I think with the way that this defense has played so far, to me, just the biggest concern, and they're catching a little bit of break here, right, with the 49ers injuries and sort of what they're dealing with early on in the season. But it's not like the Cardinals have had an all-world schedule here to start the year, going up against the Saints and the Panthers, and these two offenses are not that scary. So you really have to wonder, all right, now playing a much tougher team. Obviously, got to look at who's going to be healthy, who's not going to be unhealthy on their side too. This early in the season, even with some injuries, I'd rather stick to what's working and see how it plays out early, in the first quarter, first half against a better football team in the 49ers, and then start to make adjustments from there instead of, drastically changing the game plan after you've had some success here the first couple weeks.
He is my favorite around all cities, the NFL man with all the insight. He is Adam Hogue. Adam, thank you so much for taking the time, and we'll talk to you soon.
I'm going to put that on my resume. Espo's favorite at All City. I like that.
You can. No problem at all. I'll even be a reference if you ever need it. So we'll talk
Thanks,
to you soon.
Espo. Appreciate it, man.
Appreciate everybody. That is another edition of Southwest Bias in the books. Big shout out to Kevin behind the Mac filling in for the mustache. You can follow him at Kevo Posts. Look at that. I remembered it without having to look at it. You can follow the show at PHNX_sports. And you can follow me at Espo. Remember, no PHNX Cardinals show today, but Johnny and the boys will be back tomorrow, and Johnny will join me right here on the program. So until next time, let's just get an offense that actually clicks. Ahoy, hoy.
We all silly like the mayor.